I come from the belief of like it at certain age after childhood and like being mature, you realize that like people are people, how they have their own traumas. No one gets out of childhood unscathed, and so people are being human and being messy.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from all over the world to hear their personal journeys of self-discovery through the lenses of love, sex, and relationships.
Our mission is to show people that they're not alone and to inspire them to embrace their true selves so that together we can open minds and live authentically without shame.
We believe everyone's story is powerful and beautiful, yet it's important to remember that everyone does life a little bit differently and that the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect our own.
Additionally, we aren't doctors. Please consult a medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on the show. Enjoy!
Well, welcome to episode 351. We're Finn and Emma, and as you can probably tell, I am fighting a bit of laryngitis right now. But I'm going to do my best.
The show must go on, Emma.
Yes. Today we have a beautiful interview with Christa Lei. They also go by Christa, as you'll see throughout the interview. Both are used. They also identify themselves as fat, queer, non-binary, disabled, neurodivergent, non-monogamous and polyamorous, sex-positive, kinky, and a community care facilitator.
And that's not all.
No, I know.
But wait, there's more. No, today we get to have a beautiful conversation with Christa about the intersection of all their identities and how those have shaped their journey in non-monogamy, which began a few years ago, which began about 6 years into their relationship with their spouse as a don't ask, don't tell sort of dynamic, but over the years has shifted more towards a kitchen table poly dynamic. So yeah, we're going to dig into all of that, but Christa also digs into the power and importance of community support and care throughout their journey, which has really influenced much of the work that they also do around teaching people about building community care constellations through their polyamorous journeys.
Yes, and they're bringing their work to the Midwest Love Fest, August 17th in Indianapolis, where they're hosting a workshop called The Cosmos of Care, Building Care Constellations Through Polyamory. And you'll hear Christa talk all about this in the interview. But if you want to join using Christa's link and affiliate code in the show notes, you get a 10% discount and also support Christa directly.
Yes, and just to be clear, this is a one-day conference in Indianapolis. There is not a virtual option this year, but Midwest Love Fest, just for anybody who's like, that sounds a little bit like Southwest Love Fest. Yes,
it is.
It is very similar. It is hosted or organized by the same folks who run Southwest Love Fest. This is just a one-day in-person version of that in the Midwest. So highly, highly recommend checking it out. If you're
anywhere nearby,
that's right.
Go check it out.
Or if you're looking to burn up some frequent flyer miles.
Yeah, go travel to Indianapolis.
Yeah, get yourself to Indy. So yes. And with that, just again, a huge thank you to Christa for coming on, sharing your story with us and all of the work you do. And with that, we are going to jump right into the interview right now with Christa for anybody who is a premium subscriber. And for anybody who is not, we're going to do a couple of quick announcements and then we'll get you right into the interview.
If you're not familiar with the premium subscription, it's a way to skip these announcements up front, but jump right into the interviews. But don't worry, you still get important dates in the outro. To sign up, go to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, scroll down on the homepage and you can sign up there.
The main date we want to remind you all of is our in-person community retreat happening September 13th to the 15th out here in the San Francisco Bay Area. That's just about 6 weeks away. And
we're excited.
Easy on the laryngitis there,
I know,
Emma.
we're really excited.
We're super excited. We've got probably 50 to 60 people joining us out here in the Bay Area for a weekend of amazing workshops and activities. If you would like to learn about what that looks like, you can check out on our website under the community tab at normalizingnonmonogamy.com. There is a link right there at the top of that page that has a PDF that lists out the entire weekend and what is going on. And down below that, you can fill out the application in about 5 to 10 minutes to join our virtual community, where you will then be surrounded by about 300 of the most amazing people you'll ever meet in your life, some of whom are going to be out here in the Bay Area, and some of whom you'll just get to interact with throughout the month, throughout your days, being part of the virtual community.
You can also join the virtual community, even if you can't make it in September. Just a shout out for that as part of the virtual community, you get access to monthly Q&A calls, a monthly women's group, men's group calls, and ongoing support in Mighty Networks.
All for just $5 a month.
Exactly.
So we'd highly, highly recommend checking it out. We'd also love for you to check it out because we love meeting new people and we love this community. So thank you, as always, for listening to us brag about it and talk about it. It is just the lifeblood for us these days.
It is amazing.
The last thing we want to remind you all about is our favorite way to get tested for STIs. If you're out in the world, going to conferences like Midwest Love Fest or coming to retreats like ours, or just moving about the world in a sex positive and open-minded way, we believe that it is important to know your sexual health status so you can communicate that to all of your partners so everybody knows what's going on. And the way Emma and I do that is using a service called stdcheck.com. There are links in the podcast show notes or on our website under the resources tab. Using the links there will save you 10%, which brings the cost of a 10-panel STI test down to just $129. It also helps support the show financially, which we are super grateful for because that's how we get to keep being here, doing this, and bringing you amazing interviews.
Yes, thank you for doing most of the talking.
Yes, you are welcome. And sorry to everybody listening that I have to do most of the talking. So one more quick reminder, head over to our website, click on the resources tab. You'll find tons of other resources there, plus links to save yourself some money on STI testing. And again, thank you for that. And the very last thing for real this time, we would love for you to send us an email, send us a voicemail. You can find out how to reach out to us over on the Contact Us tab of our website, again, at normalizingnonmonogamy.com. Yes, please reach out. Any feedback you have, or if you would love to come on the show, you do not need to be a presenter at any conference. You just need to be you, willing to share your story with the world. So please reach out. We'd love to hear from you. And with that, here we go to talk to Christa.
And don't worry, we recorded this interview a few weeks ago, so my voice is normal.
Your voice is normal?
In the interview with Christa.
Ah, perfect. That's a good point. Very good point. Emma doesn't sound like this for the whole interview. All right.
But I'm excited to have everyone listen now.
Welcome to the podcast. We are super excited to have you here today. We're excited to hear your story, talk a little bit about the work you do, and just have a wonderful conversation. It's a Friday afternoon, and we're looking forward to a great conversation today. So welcome.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Fridays are Venus's days, so it's great to have a connection and to be able to speak about, non-monogamy and the ways that we relate to each other in our community that we're part of. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Totally. Well, maybe let's just start with having you introduce yourself. We introduced you a little bit in the intro, but fill in. What do we need to know about Christa to have to frame the conversation today?
My name is Christa. I am a fat, queer, disabled, neurodivergent, non-monogamous, sex positive, kinky community care facilitator. I've been referring to myself recently as a liminal doula. So a lot of the work I do is in community, one-on-one or in education, and I try to build safer spaces for people, especially within like the queer and disabled communities, but a lot of them are overlapped. And I also write and provide free resources based off of like my disability, and I'm also I chronically ill, so that's the disabled part. So I'm disabled, I'm chronically ill, and a lot of the ways I view community and the work that I do one-on-one with people is based off of building these relationships and being able to build intimacy, and how do we as a community take care of ourselves and how do we resource each other. So that's kind of the work that I do. I've been more involved with it, but I've worked in healthcare before, and now I'm starting to be more open about my non-monogamy journey after not being like out for a while. So this is interesting, and I'm very happy to be doing this work and being able to speak with you and talking about my story.
Yeah, I'm excited to dig into it a little bit more. And I think I would love to really tie the community piece in at some point, because we're huge community advocates. Anybody who heard you say community probably rolled their eyes because we talk about it so much, but that's perfect because that's what we're here for. But maybe to sort of like set the framework for that, can you kind of take us back in time to where like non-monogamy came into your life for the first time? Like, where was the first time you really got exposed to it?
Sure. I mean, I think when you're single, especially in your, I guess, late teens, early 20s, when I was in college, I started to realize that dating is kind of like, I mean, it is non-monogamy. Dating, even in a monogamous setting, is non-monogamy. You are trying to find the right fit for yourself. And, now that I'm polyamorous, and that's how I identify as, now that I'm polyamorous, I'm like, there can be multiple good fits. But I was starting to kind of see the cracks of where traditional monogamy failed. And I'm also a child of the diaspora. My parents are Filipino immigrants from the Philippines. I was born and raised in Hawaii, and Filipino families, if you're not familiar, they're huge. So it's a huge extended family. Both my parents have like 8 siblings each. And so this feeling of like the community and the family kind of takes care of everyone and has this expansive love to give in resourcing. So resourcing is the way that my family shows love. And I realized that, why can't that also be in romantic relationships, and even like friendships? And it's kind of a decolonized view of love, which is why I'm really, I really started to be more non-monogamous. But going into that, starting to date, and when I moved to the Bay Area for grad school, I was on OkCupid and dating around and not really looking. I think right before I left for grad school, I really kind of sat there and I was like, wait, what am I doing? I was like, what am I doing? Why am I trying to find the one? And so I was interested in non-monogamy at that point, and I didn't think I was going to meet my now spouse. I didn't think I was going to meet my now spouse when I started that. So I was just going in like, oh, I'm just going to have fun and like not care. And of course, as soon as I move, I meet this person and I'm like, oh my God, I'm headed over heels in love. So, and we've been together for a decade now. And part of that also like is his story too, is we're a lot of each other's firsts. And so especially like intimacy wise and like, first real, this is my spouse is someone that like I've never lived with a partner before. And he's the first person that I started to live with. And I was also a lot of firsts for him. He's not from America. He's from the Netherlands. And it's interesting to like kind of bring his story in because even though he's older, he was a little less experienced in dating and just was focused on career stuff. So it was kind of a learning journey for both of us. And we kind of we were like very much in love and focused on ourselves. But I think we went in it and I was like, hey, because you aren't as experienced, like I had been dating and like did my slutty phase. I mean, I like to call myself like a demisexual slut. I will make out with almost anyone within reason. I won't do much else, but like, I like affection and cuddles.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I told my spouse, I was like, why don't we try non-monogamy? At first it was like a don't ask, don't tell thing. And I don't recommend that. It works for some people. I wouldn't recommend it. It's just so much easier now where I am in my life and where we're at in our relationship to just be, I like kitchen table as much as possible, but a mixed, just being open and honest. I felt like, the don't ask, don't tell thing was kind of, it felt like lying by omission, and I didn't feel that it was like a consensual non-monogamy thing. So
were you the person who was or was it both like a don't ask, don't tell both directions? Like you were both kind of doing. Okay.
It was a both directions thing. And it was, we've talked about it now after I would say like, because we were so focused on being together, I don't think either of us acted on it. And if we did, like, I really don't, because we've talked about it, and I don't think we acted on it really until like I think it was really like 2020. Like when lockdown started, we were like, okay, like we need more connection and like we need to like start to connect with people virtual, like there needs to be more human connection that I'm not getting because we're stuck in a, lockdown in a pandemic.
Yeah.
And so I think that, and it's also like my partner and I have lived together, my spouse and I have been together for around a decade now. And so that point we had already been living together for like 5 years. And so it was just like we are always also together. I don't think I've been away from him. Yeah. I mean, we live together. We're very enmeshed. So I'm like, I don't think I've been away from him for more than a month, I think, since we've met, which is crazy. Just that's what being in love is. But I think, during the pandemic, it was kind of like, oh my God, I'm around you all the time. I think everyone felt that. And so I think exploring, the liminal connections and trying to build, not even just like connections with one-on-one, but it was like trying to foster a community online was hard. And I think that ended up, and we also found local spaces once things started to open up. And I think that kind of like the having the option taken away from us, right? Really felt like, okay, now I need to go do it. And we were already established enough at that point and secure enough in our relationship because we had been together for about, I think like 5 or 6 years when this started. And that's when we kind of moved into more polyamory because I realized like I'm queer, I'm demisexual. I can't really, I'll make it with anyone, right? But within reason. But it's like I just sexually and like erotic intimacy doesn't come easy to me if I don't feel safe. And that's part of being queer and non-binary and disabled and all these other intersectional identities. But it's also because it just hits better with the emotional component. And so it went from kind of non-monogamy to like opening it up to polyamory and opening it up to emotional connections. And, my partner and I started going plane parties together and like kink events, and they're not for him. He's very introverted. He's very shy, very neurodivergent. I've helped him like, with hooking him. I'm his wing person. Cause he's amazing. I love him. I'll go on and on about, my spouse, Toby, but, I'm his wing person and we're kind of, we don't date together. We date separately, but it's just like he's so shy that it's cute, and it's like you gotta go, like you're an amazing person, like go for it. And so I think, and it's also like I started meeting people, and I fell in love with someone, and it was, I think, uncomfortable at first for him to experience that, and he's never been a jealous person, but he also had his moments, and we got really close over the last like 3 or 4 years practicing this form of non-monogamy. We're polyamorous and we prefer kitchen table. And, I have another partner who's a comet partner who lives in the Netherlands, who I met during the pandemic. And then we met in person because my spouse is from the Netherlands. My comet lives there. We had this connection and we're just like, it's a weird connection. No one understands it. And I'm totally fine with that because it worked for us.
Yeah.
And then I'm actually going through like kind of a partner uncoupling with my long-term serious partner that I mentioned. I fell in love with someone and it was long-term, and that kind of started the kitchen table process. And they were very enmeshed in my life, and it's hard now. I'm grieving, and it's I didn't think my death doula education would be helpful, except with clients, but honestly, it's been helpful for this processing of grief and so I'm lucky to have the understanding and space and care from my community and my like little constellation, my polycule. Toby's been great. And, my comet partner's been great too. So right now I would say like non-monogamy looks like a lot of healing and a lot of maintenance of the connections I already have.
Yeah.
Like it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love my question was going to be a few minutes ago is, can you describe what it looks like today? And you just fell right into that. So thank you.
Yeah.
Of course.
And I, the honesty behind that too, like right now, this is what it looks like. It's was different, and it has been quite the journey, and we definitely want to dig into more of that. But
Mhm.
like for right now, this space, I imagine that the community that you've built, as you just mentioned, over the last several years is what is helping you with this transition as well.
Yeah, no, they've been wonderful. And part of that was just being able to have those in-person spaces again. But at the same time, like I said, I mentioned like a big part of my story is I am disabled. I have lots of chronic illnesses. I can get sick easily, and I'm also neurodivergent. So like, and I think a lot, honestly, to be fair, like I think a lot of people who are non-monogamous are neurodivergent. I
Yes,
feel like it's a
yes.
superpower for us because but it's also, there's a book by Resmaa Menakem called Monsters in Love, and it's kind of, I like it as a resource for interpersonal dynamics and relationships. It is a little like cis mononormative, so I don't recommend it for that. But there is something that he says where it's kind of like, the reasons you fall in love with people, those qualities are also the things that are gonna cause issues in the relationship. And so it's funny that like for neurodivergence too, and neurodivergence is like we can hyper focus on like that's the new relationship energy kind of thing. And so I think it's just funny in that aspect of like it works so well. Like we really care about, and for me, my experience of like having ADHD and like falling in love is like, yeah, I hyper focus on new relationships to sometimes the detriment of my other relationships. And I know that now. But I just think it's funny that, something like that is like, yeah, I fall in love with this person because like they're so attentive to me. But at the same time, like when they meet someone new, it's hard because it's like you have to deal with the managing of emotions. And that kind of happened. Like I said, my spouse really isn't a jealous person. He's very chill, very calm, very cool and collected. And I think when I started dating my ex, and I was also dating like a bunch of other people at that time, I think it was just like, I'm hot. I'm hot. I feel wanted. I want to flirt. I can actually like go out and meet people. So I was dating multiple people at once, and Toby was sweet little sweet man. He's not little. He's a very tall person. The Dutch are very tall people. It was very surprising because he was like, hey, when you've been with someone, and I'm sure you two relate, you kind of know or you kind of can guess their feelings by the way that they move and their body language. And so I was like, are you okay? Like, what's wrong? And he's just like, like he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, no, tell me what's wrong. And he's like, I'm a little jealous. And I'm like, oh, why? And he's like, I just feel like I'm not getting enough like touch, or I'm getting enough of attention. And like, I really want to carve out more time together. And I was like, that's all you had to say, babe. Like, it's something that doesn't occur to you in monogamy, especially like the way that we were practicing non-monogamy too, previous to the kitchen table dynamic. It's like, you don't realize that, until it happens, right? Like it's opening up and being in these kinds of relationships can get really messy. And I wish it wasn't as messy, but one of the things I really tell people and clients and like community members is like, it's really hard to relate to people. We all want our own, we all have our own desires and wants and needs, and that's going to clash with what someone else needs. So you either have to bend and be flexible, or you have to compromise.
Yeah.
And it was just really, I think that moment where he was just like, I'm jealous and like, I need more attention. And I'm like, oh my God, you're stating a need. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking care of yourself. Yeah. How can we do that? So it's been a journey for me, and he and I were talking because we will make a year, or not a year, 10 years together in September. And we were just like, this is so weird. Like, it's such a weird milestone, but it's also like, and it's just, he said like, since you started dating this other person, that's when we got really close, because like you're confiding in me all these things. And, when we were doing it, the don't ask, don't tell way, he was just like, I didn't feel as close to you. But now, like, you're confiding in me in these things, and we have more intentional quality time together, even though we do live together and like really are never really, because he works from home and I work from home. So we're together a lot, but it was also like, okay, making that space to actually intentionally do things together, without draining us. Because,
Yeah.
you know, I'm at 2 people right now, I'm polysaturated. So, and that's just what happens after a breakup and also just health issues. So
Yeah.
I think it's just been really, I don't, I don't love calling, my situation and my, I guess, non-monogamy style, my relationship style as, hierarchical, but I understand that inherently, systemically, I am married to my spouse. So that is a hierarchy. There are things that I can't give other people. I wish I could, actually, I don't wish I could marry multiple people. Weddings are, weddings are hard.
Hmm.
And we did it because it's just legally easiest for us. We like share property together. We have dogs. It's just so much easier. We have like well, it's a post nup now, but we had a post nup. It was complicated with us. So it's hard, right? Like, I just wish that partners had the same right, other partners had the same rights as like what my spouse and I have.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's complicated.
Yes.
No, it's super complicated, and I think when it comes down to it, in some ways, it's really limitations of, yes, there's like the societal structures and the legal structures for sure, but even beyond that, there's right, we have our own bandwidth and limitations, and it sounds like you and Toby have gone on this journey of figuring out what that has been like for you, right? That looks like, it sounds like for like the first 6 years you were more or less monogamous, closed, even though it sounds like maybe you had inklings that you were interested in other things. Did I catch that right? Like, it was sort of like a feeling was there, but you two kind of just used those first handful of years to really foster
Deepen
the
the
foundation.
connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say like it was always on the table. And at some point, if we wanted to, you know, jump on it, that was fine. But life also got in the way. I think we even talked about like opening it up earlier, but you know, I got sick and we had like a hospice dog. Like, life happens. And I think it was the inklings were there. And I obviously, like, it's when life happens, you don't think about pursuing other things, you know, like, it's right in front of you. And we wanted to build a steady foundation before we hopped into any of that. And now we're kind of like in it and figuring it out. And it's messy, but it's beautiful. And, you know, even though I'm currently transitioning out of this partnership with, my ex, it's still like, I realized that like kitchen table is really fucking awesome. Because it's also hard because it's like there was one moment, this is like kind of my core moment of like, yeah, I need to just not be in like a parallel situation. I don't like parallel situations because it's just like it adds more doubt, I guess. And I'm someone who's like very disorganizedly attached. Except for people that I've obviously deemed to be safe. And that's just because of like trauma and like dating other people, you know, like life happens. But yeah, it's kitchen table. There was a situation where I think like my ex and Toby, we were just, my ex just like, came over, and I have an open door policy with my community and my little, like, I call them my care constellation, where I'm like, if I'm sick or like whatever, like, you just my door is always open. Just show up. And so my partner, my ex partner came over, and we were like having dinner together, and like I really think the friendship between them was very sweet. I'm a little sad that like it's not, as, you know, this is part of grief, but they just sat there, they were talking, they were interacting, we were eating dinner, and then they just sat and made fun of me for like an hour. And I was like, are you two like ribbing on me right now? Like, what is happening? I was like, I don't like this. Why are you making fun of me? But at the same time, I was like, oh my God, like, this is so fun. Like, this is what I want my relationships to look like from now on. I want them to have fun together. I want them to like each other. I want to know that, like, you know, with it's I operate from like a no veto policy, right? Like I can't veto anyone's partners. No one can do that for me. We have our own autonomy. But I do like the kitchen table style just because it adds a dimension of trust, right? Like inherently in terms of like consent, and you learn this in like play parties and like kink events of like, I'm a very big, like enthusiastic and radical, like consent person. And I think part of it is building those connections and the having that wider sphere of extending that love and abundance and intimacy out to people. It adds a layer of trust, and it just solidifies like, okay, if like one of my partners thinks this person is a good person, like I've made a good decision. You have, I have the approval of like my partners. And it that's also hard too, because it's also like what happens when you get in trouble. Like when you have conflict, like the other partners might know about it, or like how, it gets complicated. But it's just like, it's also like those, it just real, how do I put this? It makes you realize how interdependent we are on each other. And that's the wider sphere of like extending out to a community of like, I think the best thing about polyamory and non-monogamy is that it forces people to challenge and unlearn what the Western and like colonized view of love and family and relationships looks like. And I think especially someone who like grew up in a immigrant family, is also like a queer outsider, had to exist on the fringes of society in terms of stigma. And I think those communities and those collectives of people really bind together, because who else do we have but each other? We choose our families. And that's kind of what non-monogamy does, right? Like it brings you into community and kind of forces you to be a responsible and good citizen to each other. So my ethos of leading my life is like lead with love and compassion, and try to be in right relationship to others, no matter what that means. And I think that way I can be true to myself, and also like honor my own needs, but also be responsible and take accountability for harms or whatever that I've done. And also, exist in good relationship to the other people. And I hope everyone that I interact with also has that same
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that.
I'm curious, Christa, on the transition, because like just kind of what you're talking about there, like the power of sort of the community and the kitchen table poly dynamic, and sort of with it being out in the open. And I'm curious how that transition for you and Toby went from, hey, we're gonna do this sort of don't ask, don't tell, to no, we're gonna move it, like moving from one style to the other, like moving into kitchen table poly. Like, what did that transition look like for the two of you, and how did you kind of make it? And also, like, what does your kitchen table dynamic look like? Because I think a lot of people say they're kitchen table poly, and I think everybody does it a little bit different. So I'm curious what that really looks like for you.
Yeah, so I had a joke that my understanding of kitchen table before my ex came along was like, oh, we all live together and like we have to be enmeshed, and like you're taking, like the open chosen family. And when I was mentioning that to my ex at one point, where I'm like, oh, I don't think we're kitchen table, and they're like, no. Toby and I are definitely more than kitchen table. We're like sister wives, basically. And I was like, okay, that's not true, but whatever. I always joke that like my ex was like a little bit in love with Toby, but Toby's not queer. So like that, we could have been like a throuple, but that wouldn't have ever happened because Toby can't reciprocate that. Yeah. If my ex listens to this, they're going to be like, yeah, probably true. But yeah, I think I think for me, kitchen table, and it's a mixed thing, right? Like I prefer kitchen table dynamics in my relationship with Toby, but like my comet partner has like a primary partner, and obviously because that they're in the same country, and I don't know her, I know she exists. I don't know her personally. And it's just because we haven't had that interaction, and also just the long distance. It's like, with the long distance, whenever my comet partner and I try to see each other, it's like, okay, we make time for ourselves. We're not gonna, mess around with that. I will say that, like, like with Toby, with Toby, it was very funny because Toby and I, when we got married last year, and we had 3 different events because Toby's from the Netherlands, we live in New York, and I'm from Hawaii. And so we had a Dutch celebration, we had the actual legal marriage in New York City with a bunch of our friends who couldn't come to either of the receptions, and then we had a big blowout at home. My parents were very happy about it because they're like, we didn't get to throw in for your brother. And yeah, it was so funny because the only time I could see my comet partner in the time that I was in the Netherlands was the day after our reception. And I was like, that is a little weird. That's a little weird. And it shows like how patient and how kind and how loving Toby is, of like, the day after my first wedding celebration with this spouse, I'm gonna go off and I'm gonna hang out with my comet partner and like go on like a little staycation with them. So it's like, that's the kind of relationship that I have right now. And I think, I would love to meet his partner eventually, but we'll see how circumstances turn out. And I think with others, I try my, it's also, it depends, right? Like I strive for open and honest communication. If another partner, I think if I have another long-term partner who lives nearby, I would like to meet their existing partners, just because like it adds an element of trust. And it's like, I also just, we don't have to like each other, right? I just want to know that this person's a good person and that like, they also don't feel like I'm like encroaching or like threatening them. Like this connection is one that's serving us in some way. And I know it's been hard for like, I did have, when I was dating someone, and it was just like going through, like, it was just very like emotionally turbulent. And I was dating my ex, and then I had Toby, and then I had my comet partner. And then I was really like head over heels for this other person. And it was interesting to I think my ex didn't meet this person, but Toby met the person I was dating that I was having like issues with. And my ex, my ex would be like, why are you still dating this person? They exhaust you. Like, why? Like, every time you talk about this person, like, you get so tired. Like, just dump them. Like, they would be like, dump them. And I'm like, why are you saying that? And then it was really like Toby in this situation. Toby like saw me after like a 2-hour call with this person. Yeah, I know 2 hours is a long time to process feelings, especially like at a distance.
Oh, we've been there. We understand. I mean, even with each other, it's 2 hours is a long time. Yeah. Then, just in general.
Yeah, exactly. But it was a 2-hour phone call with someone like I wasn't even like really partnered with. It was like a very nebulous situation. And Toby came in the room, and Toby looks at me and was like, did you just wake up from a nap? Like, what? Why do you look so tired? And I'm like, I just got off the phone with this person. It was 2 hours. And he's like, I've never seen you have to take a nap after a phone call. And he's like, what went on? And when he told me that, I was like, okay, yeah, no, this is not a good connection for me. Like, I'm exhausted. And I think having other people look out for you, and especially when you're so caught up in someone and really like someone, it's so hard to not get swept up in those feelings, that new relationship energy. And it's really, I really trust the people in my life who love me and know me well to call me in gently and be like, hey, like, are you really, especially because I'm disabled, they're like, is your body able to handle this right now? Are you able to actually take care of yourself and fulfill your needs? And, people read Polysecure by now, I'm sure. Like, if you have any insecure attachment style, like, of course, of course you're going to have issues. So yeah, it's been a beautiful journey so far, but so messy. And I think
Yeah.
we just have to have compassion for each other, and it's hard.
And the messiness.
The messiness,
Yeah.
right? You got to exist in
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I mean, relationships in general are difficult, right? And then adding, I don't know, just adding multiple of them to
Yes.
navigate is just more messy. It's just it just adds some complication, and you have to be graceful with yourself and with your partners on that.
Yeah.
Because it is messy.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, right? Even if you had, let's say, the most secure attachment ever, I imagine for most of us, we have wounds, we have ways that we are insecure or have different challenges, and I think the nature of what we often do in polyamory is you meet somebody new who fits into some like part of you, and it often like lights up a part of you that you didn't even know existed, or it hits on some like vulnerability you didn't know existed. And so you could be like walking through the world like, I got this shit figured out, I have my 3 partners and everything's groovy, and then you meet somebody new who's like stomping on something you didn't know was there, and you're like freaking out, and everybody else is like, who is this? For what's happening? Who are you? Because you're like, I don't know. I've never experienced this before. Like, and it just comes sort of out of left field sometimes.
Yeah, it's also hard too because, and this is one of the challenges of being kitchen table, right? Is because everyone is so enmeshed and so involved. It's not only grieving, like, I'm not only grieving with this breakup, like the number one, like the partnership and the relationship. I'm also grieving the fact that like this person was one of my best friends and they integrated themselves into the community. And so it's like we also have overlapping communities. The queer community is not small. The polyamorous and non-monogamy communities are not big either. And so it's we're going to date some of the same people. We're going to run into each other at parties. And I think this is also one thing I've learned is like with polyamory and with non-monogamy in general, you got to talk about how you break up. Like even beforehand, I think that's very helpful to be like, this is how I act in breakups. And like, this is kind of who I am, but it's also grieving, I know it's hard. Like one of the things my ex and I talked about when we broke up, and one of the things they said during our couples therapy session where we broke up was like, I'm going to miss hanging out with you and just loafing with you, but also like hanging out with Toby, right? Like they are also losing this friendship. They're losing the connections to my other friends. When we broke up, it was really like, how are we going to do this as carefully as possible? And I obviously I care a lot about them and I love them and I really want to see them do well, and it's not our season, right? But it's a lot of grief on many sides of like, damn, like there are so many things that I can't just call them and share. And it's like, I went to see, that Wu-Tang album that's not out. Yeah.
Familiar enough. Yeah, I've seen the headlines about it.
Yeah, so they have it on tour and they stopped in New York, and my ex is like a really big fan of like Wu-Tang, but also just rap in general. And it's like, it was free. And I was like, oh my God, like they came to New York and I was like, oh my God, like this is something that like I would take them to. And it was so hard that like I couldn't take them, but I took my spouse and it was amazing and it was dope as fuck. And it was dope. If you have a chance to listen to it in a big setting, it's amazing. I have nothing. The mix was awful. But the actual tracks were good. But it's like those are things that I share with them, and it's hard because it's like I lost one of my best friends, and they also lost their best friend and this extension of community. So it also just shows like how intertwined and intersectional all the identities that I'm part of, and these communities and collectives are also so it's expansive and it's also so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I love that you said like thinking about sort of planning for the breakup, right? Or planning for the end of a partnership. And I think that's something that it's not super fun to do when you're just like getting to know somebody, to be like, hey, I know this is like date number 2, but let's like think about what's it going to be like if we break up in a year or 2 or 3?
Yeah.
And it's probably not realistic to do it quite like that. But I think what can happen is as you start to get closer to somebody, thinking about some of these things, or maybe even before you escalate a partnership, I think one of them is community and saying, okay, we are part of the same small community. This is your like main support system. It's my main support system. So if we go into a partnership together and it doesn't pan out and one of us has to leave, like there's going to be, it's not just our partnership that ends. It's my main support in my life is
Yeah.
going to have to change. And so maybe that's not worth it, right? Maybe that's a thing that you rethink and go, well, I really like this partnership, but like the risk to our well-being and our community outside of us is too great to take the risk to try, whatever partnership we're going to do. Or maybe we do it in a different way, right? Like even just being aware and acknowledging that there is going to be
Yeah.
impact on the other end can be really, really, really helpful. And I also get that like it's also not really a fun thing to do in the NRE stage is to talk about the end of your partnership that might be coming, right?
Yeah, no, I think that was one of the big things. And it's also like this person, I think, was the first serious partnership that I've had long term. That was significant. We were together for about a year and a half, and it was like the first close long term relationship that I've had. I've had other people that I've dated for long terms and shorter relationships, but it's hard because it's also like you don't know these things until that, like you said earlier, it's like you don't know until someone else opens up something inside of you. That it's like, oh shit, like that's one of those things was like, I wish we had talked about it more ahead of time. And I also wish that we had prepared ourselves. And I kind of saw it coming. I'm going through a lot. And like, I could see that our relationships are, our desires were like veering off. And I was trying to do, you know, I hate the word de-escalate. I think it's silly because I just don't believe in the relationship escalator, but we were trying to like de-escalate as care. I was like, I'm pretty sure we're going to de-escalate. And then it just, a lot of stuff happened, and in the messiness and being human of it all, it snowballed very quickly. And I wish that wasn't the case, but it is good that like, I love, and I also don't know if people understand how like femmes especially have been socialized. I am non-binary, but I have a lot of femme friends. I am very queer, and it's hard because it's like a lot of femme friendships, and this is something that even in monogamy I've dealt with, of like if you have femme friends and you're socialized as femme, no, I come from the belief of like it at certain age after childhood and like being mature, you realize you realize that like people are people, how they have their own traumas. No one gets out of childhood unscathed, and so people are being human and being messy. And it's funny because when you have femme friends, no matter what, if you break up with someone, they're in the wrong. Like your femme friends are like ride or die. Even if you did shit wrong, they're like, yeah, no, it's fine. Like they're fucking evil. And it's like, no, that's not, I get it. Like you're trying to cheer me up and be there for me. But like we have to be compassionate and like, and not to say that like I haven't been petty privately or whatever, like I can, like those are my feelings, but as long as I don't endanger the community and like the spaces that we built, and I don't want them to, I think I don't ever want anyone in my life to ever be unhappy. And like, that's part of also non-monogamy has brought me of like, relationships aren't failures, right? If they end, they're just, you're not in the right season for each other. Time is like cyclical. My ex is like a really very smart, very intelligent, like philosopher, and like has this motto of like clock time is the enemy. And I'm like, yeah, because time is actually really cyclical. It goes in cycles, and like maybe this isn't our season, but maybe another one is. That's my hope, in the end. But I'm hoping that after all the healing and integrating ourselves into community and finding what works for us, that eventually they'll be part of my community again after we both process. But it's still so fresh. So I don't know if you've had that experience as well of like, sometimes it's good to like step out of it and then go back in when you're ready. And there is a difference, I think, too, between like a collective of people versus a community where like they can overlap. But, you know, I do think a lot of, I'm more focused on building community than being part of a collective right now. It's, you know, collective for me, what I've heard is like the vocabulary used is like a collective of people are like people who gather together. They have their own interests, but they're bonded together over something. And the community is like, community can exist within the collective, and community, which I think we're all part of, because we're all kind of, we're both collective and community. Collective is like people having their own goals and like their own agenda. Community is the entire community is kind of set and doing things to get this community goal out and these community values out. So there's a difference to me, and I'm kind of in this very, I think it's not that radical, but maybe I've just been so radicalized of like, I'm very abolition focused, very intersectional, decolonize, anti-colonial, anti-capitalist sentiment of like, that's what I think polyamory and non-monogamy is kind of an antidote to, is this Western individual sentiment. And our ancestors, you know, lived together as community members and communal care, you know, like watching people take care of families together is a beautiful thing. My brother and his wife have a baby. They're monogamous, but like seeing the ways that my parents and like their relatives have like shown up, you know, like my nephew has like nannies who are like family members who take care of him. And it's kind of like, that's, you know, like that's the kind of, they're not even non-monogamous. And like, that's the kind of shit I want for my life. And so it's a very decolonized stance. And I do think we can have that with non-monogamy. So,
yeah.
you know.
And I really love that you've brought in so many pieces, but that people can find that community. Like non-monogamy is one way.
Yes.
It's not the only way.
No.
The example of your brother and your nephew and everything, like that's their way that works for them.
Yeah.
Cool. Like that's amazing. And non-monogamy is a way for some people to find that community and to find those people. I also really just wanted to comment on like bringing in the process of grief that you've brought in. I feel like just the realness of that. Like there's so many pieces. You've commented on many different pieces of like in this transition places where there is grief for you, for your ex-partner, for your spouse, like, and speaking to that, because that's, I mean, I think part of processing through this all is talking about it.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say thank you for like bringing all of that in.
No, thank you. I appreciate you listening and being able to relate to it. And, you know, it just shows that like, even if we have and are part of all these separate communities, there are so many similarities. Like we are human, right? And we are trying to build connection. I think that's ultimately the core of like, and we forget that, right? We forget that because of capitalism. And we're so focused on being productive that it's like, we don't really need to be I mean, we do for money, and we exist under a structure that forces us to, but it's like my family builds community through being there for each other and resourcing each other. This is also the why I do the work I do. It's like, I've seen my friends, like I sit with like peer people too, and like we talk about non-monogamy, and I've recently become the elder friend who like everyone goes to for relationship problems, which I think is crazy. You know, like I'm sure you've dealt with that too, having this platform is like, now you have all your friends coming to you and be like, oh my God, I'm in this situation. What do I do? And it's like, I don't know. I'm not you. Like, I can tell you what I would do in that situation, but you're your own person. So like, do whatever you want. But it's like, I just want people to know, and this is actually what I'm presenting about, of like utilizing these very radical things. Like I'm disabled. And so I use a lot of disability justice framework, and like disabled mutual aid, is part of the thing of like, there are so many ways to be in community with people and showing up. It's like the way that I show up for my friends and my loved ones is different from the way other people are going to show up for their friends and loved ones. And that can be as simple as like sending a meme. You know, like sending a meme. I have also a group chat with my friends every morning. We just check in with each other and we're like, hey, squad, how you doing? Like, how's the fam? How is everyone? And it's like, those people I consider to be part of my polycule because they're my queer platonic partners. They're people who I can co-conspire with. And so it's like building these networks and communities is not isolated to just romantic relationships. It is also extended out to the wider sphere of like, my friends are part of my life. They're part of my chosen family. I will give them the resources they need because I know when I am down and out, that, you know, like I give them what I need or what they need because I know when I've seen it, right? Like I've seen it in this grief is like, I've had friends come over. I've had friends come over and give me little treats was what I call. I talk about like, I'm kind of like a dog where I'm like, I'm single-handedly fueling the little treat economy. I think everyone deserves a little treat, just for existing. So during the breakup, it's like, I've had people like be like, hey, what's up? I'm going to show up. What kind of boba do you want? And it's like, you don't have to get me any boba, but it's like, okay, you're trying to give me a little treat. Fine. Just come over, get me the brown sugar. Like, you know, like it's the little things that I think make a huge difference after a while. And, you know, I think that in the spirit of community, especially because, right now we're recording this and it's the end of Pride Month, but it's like being part of these like, and I would even say like non-monogamy itself is a kind of queering of relationships. And so I think a lot about how proud I am and how happy I am that I'm still in the process of unlearning this cis-het mononormativity that society inflicts upon us so that we can live, not just me, but like my hope is for everyone, can live in their most authentic, true selves, and be happy to relate to others and know that they have a system of community that's behind them no matter what.
Yeah. Well, and I think that becomes extra important, right? At the stage where you kind of mentioned a few minutes ago that you and your former partner are sort of thinking, do we maybe need like a full space to really like, you know, take whatever amount of time with whatever it is, no contact, or really giving each other the space to grieve and heal this. And when you can do that and look to yourself and go, okay, I can go no contact with this person and I have my people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can look to them and they have their people. And so I can't be their support through this, but they have support, and they can't be my support through this, but I have my support. And then that gives you both like the time to really heal up all of the wounds so that maybe you can come back and say, well, hey, we can now be in each other's communities again, and we can come and do fun stuff. And I can invite you to the Wu-Tang, you know, performance. And like, we can do the things today that we couldn't do a month into our breakup, but you know, 6 months in, maybe we can, or a year and maybe we can. And so I think so much of that becomes possible when you have the community support around you that isn't, like you said, they're not other people you're hooking up with. They're just people who've got your back.
Yeah.
And people who maybe also aren't necessarily vilifying your ex, right? I know that's also like, that's a very heteronormative thing to do, is when you break up, like, fuck that person.
Yeah.
They weren't right. And then you're like, no, like, not fuck that person. They were amazing. They've got their stuff. I've got my stuff. We'll be circling around in 6 months or a year. So yeah, they'll be friends again. We just can't do it today.
Yeah, I think that's really hard for people to understand. And I think it's also hard. I was talking to one of my really close friends earlier where I was just like, it's so funny that when we're younger, we don't realize that, or like we villainize everyone. And, you know, like I think my friends have been very sweet about the whole thing, where it's just like, I think one thing that people should practice is like, asking what you need for like a conversation. So it's like, you know, when I ask my friends if I can vent, I'd be like, hey, this is how I want to vent. Do you have space and capacity to listen to me do this? And also, can you just listen? Can you not like bitch about it? And like, part of it is also like, I gotta be petty. Can you support me in being petty? Like, obviously I don't really feel this way about this person and I want them to have their best life. But
and I need to bitch for a minute.
Yeah. Can you just let me complain? And I think my friends are also like very sweet in understanding like, yeah, no, we get that. But like, I'm still gonna, you're my ride or die. I'm still gonna like defend you till the end, which I love the loyalty, but it is also like, it's nice to have friends who will like indulge the pettiness with you sometimes.
Yep.
Because you know,
But sometimes you need to get those feelings out.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that you don't also feel the other things, but sometimes complaining about whatever and just like being in that space is what you need.
dialectics, everyone. Like, this is what
Yes.
life is about. And so, yeah, I think that is also very heteronormative. And I also just think like people don't understand that that's kind of the way people are socialized, is we villainize anything that's failed or if something ended poorly, which, you know, it's so black and white. It's so harsh. And I think the beautiful thing about non-monogamy, and also realizing the importance of community, because I do consider my friends and my chosen family as part of a polycule and my like care constellation. So I count those people, you know, like I refer to one of my best friends as like my wife, because we, you know, take care of, I babysit her kid when she's busy and working. And, you know, it's really heartwarming to know that like I am now a part of that care team for her, and that like we are queer platonic partners in a sense.
Yeah.
And helping with like childcare, and like, you know, my best friend's husband got like surgery. And so like we went down and like tried to help them. And it's just like, that's amazing. And that's the kind of stuff that like I wish people understood more when they enter non-monogamy or polyamory, is like, it's not just about the romantic relationships. It's about the wider sphere and the network you're building. And the fact that you can have that with like anyone, I you know, part of what I'm talking about in August is like, there are these concepts that we can apply to any single part of our relationship. And I just think that people need to be reminded of it, because this is what our ancestors did. This is this is how communities took care of each other before industrialization happened. So, I love that you reflected back on that, of like, that is something that we're trying to unlearn as a society, of like, we can't villainize people. We're all just trying to live and exist in our, because, you know, it's not just, I'm grieving personally a lot of things, not just this breakup, but like the collective world. It's like a really hard world out there right now. So I think being compassionate and like giving yourself love, and also surrounding yourself with beautiful, wonderful people, and like even building connections like this, right? Like, this is a podcast episode, but we're also connecting and being able to be vulnerable and providing, you know, we're connecting here, but we're also connecting to other people who are going to listen to this later and see themselves in this conversation or in any of the situations we mentioned.
Yeah. Thank you, Christa. I think that's beautiful. And I agree. Like, this is just a, you know, a different version of connection.
Yeah.
This is our version today, right here, right now. And I love that. And I'd really love for you to talk a little bit more about your presentation in August and what you're doing around that, so that if people are able, they can come and listen.
And then I have one other question after that.
Sure. Yeah. Also, like, I just want to point out, like, we're on video, and I know we're not going to record this, but it's just very, I had to point it out. It's like, I love the way that you two look at each other and like the little moments. There's so much love there. You can tell. So
we'll leave that in.
Yeah, leave that in. They look at each other very lovingly. I caught Finn looking at Emma, and I was like, "Oh, that's love." It was very sweet.
I only look at her with loving eyes, right, Emma?
Always.
Tell them the truth.
Not under coercion or anything.
No,
Right.
Yeah, so my presentation is called The Cosmos of Care, and it's about building care pods and relationships, kind of designing your own relationships. And I'm basically, it's a 90-minute workshop where I'm going to be talking about like the interconnectedness of like what we exist in this macro system. And there are things like care pods and like, which can care mapping, like what do I need as a person? How do I, what are my values? We're going to talk about what are my values? What is the relationship style I want to be in? What is my self-care plan in case something happens and I'm in distress? So these things that I've taken from like peer counseling, and frameworks from disability justice. And then we're going to zoom out and kind of be like, okay, who in my life can, like, if I'm in a medical situation, who in my life can I actually call to do that? And like, who's willing to be part of this care team? Or like, if I need childcare, like, who can I rely on? And so that's not just a like non-monogamy thing, though it's easier with non-monogamy. Like, you can have different people in different pods, but you can also have the same people fulfilling different areas of your life in pods. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about like what we value, what we want, how we prioritize ourselves, like what are self-care things, like what music do I want to listen to when I'm sad, like simple things like that. And then stretching it out to like, well, who would actually want to be a part of this care plan with me? Who is the person that's like, if I'm feeling crappy at like 2 a.m, who am I going to text in the late night ennui, like with the late night ennui to like give me that support? And so I'm going to teach people and remind people like, this is these are different frameworks we can use, and you take what you need. And at the end, hopefully we'll design something for you to take home and we can talk about it. Like, I'm excited to talk about it with people. And it's a very interactive workshop. There's going to be a lot of like drawing and like, I don't really know how it's set up, but I'm going to say like floor and marker time. And just talking. And I'm really excited to help people build and design kind of their care self and interdependent care plans. And webs. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And I wish we could be there. But I'm excited to hear how it goes afterward. If people want to join, links will be in the show notes, but can you tell us a little bit about how people could join?
Yeah, sure. So they can sign up. The link will be in the bio, and there's a discount to a 10% discount if you use my code Christa Lei. But basically sign up. It's 1 day. You can show up to as many workshops as you want. It's going to be in Indianapolis, and it's a 1 day conference. I think that runs from like 9 to night. Like, it's the morning and I'm in the afternoon around 2:00. So for you people who want to travel in or want to sleep in like I do on a Saturday, that's why I asked for like a later time. I think there's also going to be like a bunch of like networking opportunities and like breakout groups and like party afterwards. So, I'd love to have people see each other, and I'd love to see some of you in person if that's possible.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, yes, links to your link will be in the show notes so people can save the 10%. And that link also helps support you, which is amazing.
Yes, thank you.
And yeah, definitely check out Midwest Love Fest, which is an offshoot of Southwest Love Fest. People have heard us talk about in the past. We've been to in the past. So definitely check it out.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then you also do other work. I just wanted to make sure you have an opportunity to plug that as well.
Yeah. So I write, and I have a Substack called isthiswhatyouwant.org. And I write about disability and kind of the intersections of like mental illness and being non-monogamous. I talk a lot about grief. And then I also do workshops like this. So I don't think the one in Midwest Love Fest is going to be recorded, but I will, if there's enough interest, I will record it. And so you all can have that for your, probably will offer that up. But I also do one-on-one peer consulting, and I'll sit with people. I do death doula work. So that's either in person or, virtually. And I do patient care advocacy because I'm a disabled person, and I want to help people who are both, who are struggling with their care and struggling with like medical trauma or whatever. So it's like, I'm here for like relationship peer advice. I'm here for helping navigate systemic hardship. So like the healthcare system is the big one, mental health access, and then I'm also here for end of life and death care. And that's really cool because if I get to sit with people, it's not only, this is a example of community of like, I not only help the dying person, but I'm also helping the caretakers and the family of that grieve. And so providing them education, and I do workshops, and there's going to be a lot of, I do like potlucks too, where you get to come in and, have dinner, bring some food, and then we just talk about, either death or deep topics, or like I had one where it was like a debate night. It was crazy. So it's really nice. I have all those community things for offer, and those are New York. But I'm offering them online too, and that's at christalei.me. And my Instagram is at @supkrista. So hopefully I get to connect with you all there, and I'm very responsive. So I love emails. So email me back.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Awesome. Yes. And links to everything that you just shared will be in the show notes as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And my last question, maybe just to kind of wrap up today, is curious about, like, if you along this journey have come out and shared this with your family, and you've talked about how big your family is and how big Filipino families are, and also like their focus on community. And I'm just curious how that's gone, and if that sort of community vibe has sort of like enveloped what you're doing.
Yeah, so it's complicated. I'm very much out in public. And I think, in my culture, it's a culture of avoidance, but I don't openly talk about, who I'm dating or whatever unless they ask. But my brother knows, my brother has talked, my parents are the ones who I'm mostly like, I don't talk unless they ask for it, but they know I'm queer, they know I'm non-binary. So like, it's about time, it might be about time for that. But my whole extended family knows. They follow me on social media. I'm sure my parents are aware of it. And I'm sure they're also aware that I'm going through a breakup right now, but they're not going to ask me about it unless, they need it. They're kind of like very, they are big on community care, but they are very like stoic. But, I was on another podcast talking that just came out, and I talked about it. My cousin ended up listening to it, and my cousin reached out and was like, "Hey, like I really loved hearing you talk about this." And I'm like, "Oh my God, okay, like cool." So it's been really cool to see like my family's reaction if they listen, and some of them have reached out privately, and they know I'm different. Like my wedding, I had my non-monogamous friends come, and I also had like a drag queen at my wedding, and my cousin was just like, "Yeah, no, we've always known Krista's a little weird, and like we'll just do this. So like it's we get it, so it's not unusual to us. The adults might be like a little weirded out by it, but like they understand, they know that they're weird." And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of how it is. It's I think they like the community aspect. They know about the presentation. And it's just weird to like hide certain things from them, right? Like it's like I'm not lying, and I'm not being like, I'm being vague on purpose, because if they are interested, they'll go out and seek the information and I'll tell them. But it is one of those things of like, because of me being queer and like having these marginalized identities, I also try to keep myself safe. So I think my extended family knows. They ask about it, they talk about it, they're very active about it. My immediate family is aware of it. I think the only person who really engages is like my brother. My brother and my sister-in-law, and the rest of are kind of just like in their own world, which is fine. But they do love, and I think they think it's funny that I am so involved in my community, and so into building community spaces, because my family is also like, they also run small community businesses, so it runs in the family, I guess.
Yeah, it does.
Amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that, and for sharing everything you did today with us. It was a wonderful conversation, and I'm really glad that we got to talk today and get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. I can't wait for our paths to cross again soon.
I know. I'm so happy that you were able to give me the space, and I love talking to you all too, and seeing and witnessing the love, like witnessing the love and the joy that comes from connecting like this, and also, witnessing it with you too as well.
Amazing. Well, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
And have a wonderful New York City day. I know by the time people are listening to this, it might not be as hot, but you're in a heat dome, so stay cool. And
it might still be hot.
It might still be hot.
It might still be hot.
Heat dome round 3 by then. Who knows?
I know.
And enjoy your summer, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your summer, and I hope it stays cool.
Thank you.
It guarantees to be perennially cool here.
Yeah.
So perpetually cool here. Yeah. Awesome. Well, have a wonderful day, Christa.
Thank you.
And we are back. Thank you so much, Christa, for everything that you shared. It was a delight to to talk to you today, and we're so excited to hopefully send people your way to your workshop at Midwest Love Fest, August 17th in Indianapolis, Indiana. And a reminder to anyone listening, you can sign up for Christa's workshop and to join Midwest Love Fest and get 10% discount by using the links in the show notes.
Yes. And just echoing Emma's gratitude on my end, and also a little bit of disappointment, Emma. I thought after the interview, your voice would be better.
Right? I would hope so.
I don't know what happened here. Or feel like we're going backwards. So yes, thank you, Christa. It was wonderful to chat with you, and we look forward to sending more people your way. Please check out Christa's work. And just a quick reminder, we would love to have you come join us out here in the San Francisco Bay Area in about 6 weeks in the middle of September 13th to the 15th. We are hosting our in-person community retreat. For more information, please head over to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. Click on the community tab. You'll find there a link to a PDF that talks about the entire weekend, plus information on how to join our virtual support community for $5 a month. And we would love to see you in there.
And a quick reminder, if you missed it, last week on Friday, we released an episode, an Ask Us Anything episode all about compersion. So you're going to want to go back and listen if you haven't.
Yes, it's a fantastic conversation with our friend Marie Tuin. Check it out.
And Miche.
And Miche.
Yes.
Yes. All right. And with that, we are going to tell you that next week we have another amazing interview with the lovely Jen coming to us all the way from Scotland. And we're super excited about that conversation. So we will see you all in a week. And until then,
bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.